What's going on, everybody? We got some stuff to talk about today. Amazon Games announced that they are going to be doing a tuning pass, aka Nerfs, to certain Guardian raids and Abyss dungeon encounters. I'll link the post down below, but I'll also read it off to you real quick. So here we go. Difficulty hot topic when it comes to Lost Ark Endgame. We've seen a lot of feedback around specific raids and dungeons that players feeling like they're a little more tedious than fun. So anyways, in response to this feedback, they are going to be nerfing certain T1 and T2 encounters. The encounters that are getting a tuning pass are listed here. It is going to be Virtus, the Scorpion guy, Yoho, Titalos, Acatates, Alberhastic, then also these entry-level Abyssal dungeons. Do we know how much they're going to nerf them? Do we know how much health they're going to get reduced? We don't. However, since I played the game since it came out in Korea, on and off, the original raids and Abyss dungeons upon release there were actually tuned quite a bit harder, actually substantially harder, and over time they were nerfed. So this is not the first time that they have actually nerfed these raids to make them a little bit easier. The other big thing is, I think possibly why they're doing these nerfs is because they want people to not really hit a resistance wall too much and kind of just make it to T3 a little bit quicker. So now you're probably asking yourself, why are they nerfing this? You know, I've seen a lot of people saying it's the vocal minority outcrying, and kind of like maybe I thought the same thing. But they actually posted a statistic in another thread. This is Rock, she's the community manager. Anyways, the current success rate for these encounters is actually less than 10%. That is correct. Less than 10%. It's not like a couple people are failing to complete these encounters. A large majority of players are hitting a wall, a content progression wall, and they're unable to complete these encounters, which is pretty crazy. I understand a lot of skilled and hardcore players that are concerned about content nerfs in the future. Right now, we're dealing with early endgame content. There needs to be a balance between players feeling accomplished versus frustrated. Yes, folks can take time to learn and improve, but many players, if they are doing something repeatedly without having this experience of getting closer, they'll simply move on from the game, which is where striking the balance comes in. So this is the reason why they are going to be doing these balancing adjustments. And they actually just said they'll share more details about the specifics of the adjustments later on in the week. So anyways, how do I feel about these raid nerfs and difficulty nerfs? I personally, I'm fine with the Guardian raid nerfs, but not so much the Abyssal dungeon nerfs. The thing about these early raids, this is not your end game. The real good content in the game is your T3 stuff, your Argos and your Legion raid. That's really what keeps the player base captive. And if you've ever done these in a different game, like game area, Korea or Russia, you'll know this. The thing about these early level contents is they are kind of like a stepping stone process. They're a teaching tool to introduce mechanics that you might not be familiar with, and will help you later on in the game. So this is the little thing that I'm worried about, is if people don't learn these mechanics early on, they will be even more frustrated when they actually get to the harder stuff. That is the purpose of these early Guardian raids and Abyssal Dungeon. They teach you about stagger, they teach you about weakness, they teach you about group coordination, they teach you about positional requirements. There's so much that they teach you in these beginning raids. And the biggest, like a lot of people probably I'm wondering why people are having issues with these raids. And majority of the time when I'm playing on my main, I'll play like with my guild or I'll play with my stream. But I have a lot of alts. I'm like a 5 alt Andy, so I just have a lot of alts. And the majority of the time that I spend on my alts, I actually just pug. And whenever I pug, I do usually inspect the players in the pug. And I have failed pugs. And every single time that I fail a pug group, the majority of the reason why I failed a pug group is because people's inability or want to learn. It's not really because of the difficulty of the encounter. You'll get into a raid group, People die. Someone else will die. They'll either just auto leave or they'll click the cancel raid button and you'll have to find a new group. But every single group that I've been in where people are willing to learn, we have completed the raid encounter. It might not have taken one attempt. It might have taken multiple attempts. So the biggest thing is, like, if you ever get into a raid or a dungeon and you're like a more experienced player, don't be afraid to be a mentor. Like, ask people if they have done these raids or encounters before, and if they say no, ask them if they want to know more about it and make sure to explain the mechanics. Don't be afraid to help people out. You're not going to be like a gaming Karen if you do this. You're just going to be spreading the love, and you're just going to make the game more enjoyable for everybody, because people might pass that knowledge on to the next group of people. Also, the other big thing, whenever I pug or do the matchmaking, people aren't optimizing their gear or the character in any ways, right? Now, they'll just have their basics set on, they have no engravings, they don't have ability stones. Who knows if they even have their tripods set up. They don't use battle potions, right? They're not using flares. They're not, and like, different bosses, they're susceptible to different things. Some bosses have weak points. Some bosses, you use you just use different grenades and stuff and abilities to counter them. For example, like Talos, when he does the little sandstorm thing, if you get the sandstorm buff too early, it petrifies you. You think you might be dead. You're not dead. You can use a little cleanse potion on your character. You can remove the petrified debuff that lasts for like 30 seconds, right? It's called a panacea. Another thing is you could go to a ladder and either go up or down, like when the explosion's going to go off. And this is actually like a popular Korean strat. And it'll allow you to not be affected by the mechanics either. So I think a lot of the times that people have difficulties or are having difficulty with the Guardian raids or the Abyss raids, it's just because they're not willing to learn the game. Also, the other thing is they're not doing anything to really prepare or optimize their characters for their encounters, and they just kind of give up before they attempt to learn anything. So I see why they're nerfing these raids, because they want to give more players access to tier 3. I don't necessarily agree with all of it, and I don't agree with the Abyss Dungeon nerfs, because I think the progression of these raids will help people later on. But my biggest fear is that they might actually end up nerfing the Legion raids or your Argos content eventually. And we don't know if there's no indication of that yet, but hopefully they don't get overzealous with the nerfs and they start nerfing the really, really fun, good stuff. But anyways, that is my thoughts on the subject matter. They'll end up pushing the nerfs later on in the week. And as I said before, if you're an experienced player, you know a little bit about the raids or dungeons, make sure you try to convey that knowledge to other players in the game if they're willing to learn. It'll help them out quite a bit. Anyways, that's basically it. Bye.